You got Maga Mac here on Birds 365, and we got our guy, Chris Franklin, jumping in with us, MrNJ.com. Who's going hoodie today? Is that a hoodie you got on?
Yeah, going. Yeah, go hoodie.
Make my day. Flip the hoodie up. Let me see.
We're on a Vic.
You look like Belichick. You and Bill Belichick.
We're on a Vic Fangio. We're on that one.
That came together quickly, Chris.
Yeah, that's right. I had to try. The something about the hoodie makes you just feel sully and hate offense and everything else. So yeah, why not go with it?
You pulled it off, bud. I gotta tell you, you look very Belichickian right there. Very good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vic Fangio. That took about 20 minutes from the time he walked out of Miami and became the defense coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. They're getting a guy that and it's so funny, after a day that Nick Sirianni has been neutered, he was so outspoken about sticking with the type of defense that they had, and that's why they hired Sean Desai, because they wanted to continue to be that same type of Fangio defense. Now they get the godfather of it all. Does this speak to where Nick Sirianni is at with his power base? What does it more hammer home the point that Nick is just along for like dressing, or is this a concession to, hey, at least we'll continue to try and play a defense that Nick has been outspoken about that he likes?
I think that it's one of those things where they got the guy like, hey, if it works this year, then hey, he kept a scheme that he really wants to, his vision for a team. If not, then maybe they clean the house today to move on from the Fangio type style scheme from here on out next year when everybody's going.
We were so close, Chris. So close to getting away from that scheme.
It was. I'm sitting there like, okay. At time, I used to not like. At first, I'm like, all right, cool, I get it. But you have to, as long as the communication with the players is good, then you're good. Now it's like every time you see it, it's like, all right, somebody's running free, somebody's 10 years. Maybe he simplifies it to the point that the other guys haven't, and they can fix it so that they can actually run it effectively, which would be all right. But I just don't know. It's like he's
way too complicated. It's way too complicated for the back seven, especially when you have to play younger players. Now, Vic probably teaches it better. Not probably, definitely teaches it better than anybody. So hopefully that helps. Ironically, he probably would have loved to have Sean Desai as one of his assistants, but he can't go that route. Yeah, but from the perspective of the defense as a whole, I think you look at it around the league, everybody who ran this scheme had a bad defense this year. I think the league as a whole is catching up. Fair or unfair, or is Vic going to evolve too? Vic's evolved from different, he's been a good defensive coordinator for a long time.
You can evolve when 6 of your games that the Dolphins played finished, they gave up more than 26 points. It kind of makes you go, and then that 56 burger that the Ravens hung on.
Yeah,
that's something that you still think is
injuries. To be fair, they had some significant injuries.
Oh, by the end of the season, they just devastated on the defensive line.
Yeah, it's that one too. That's you mentioned defensive line. That's the area I think that maybe you benefit a lot better now, because especially the way that this pass rush, you don't have to see Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat dropping in the coverage as much now as you did with Patricia. So there's a silver lining there. And I think the Dolphins finished third in sacks this year as well.
Isn't it lucky, by the way, Chris, that the Eagles interviewed Ron Rivera and Jim Caldwell to get the Rooney Rule out of the way, to get Vic Fangio in 14 minutes at last check?
You hit a nerve there with the Rooney Rule. Oh, you hit a nerve. It's so many of these guys, and I think when you look at even Brian Johnson now, you saw he kept going to Falcons. Everybody knew that Belichick was going to sign there. You look at him going to Cleveland, they're probably going to go somewhere else. It's a good intention.
Yeah, Ron got an interview this morning with the Browns. He might have a shot with them, offensive coordinator. He might have.
I hope so, because it's just miraculously you just rush the guy. You see it so many times. Teams rush the guys in for the sub that flat. That's why really rule, and then it just needs to be a change with that rule. And I want to woos off of that and step away and just go.
And do virtual interviews count for the Rooney Rule?
No.
Got to be in person, right?
In person, yeah. And the Eagles set that up. So for people that think there weren't a little hinkiness going on here, yeah, there was. because they
contract got done so quickly too with Fangio.
amazing.
When he was down there, huh? Almost Gannon-ish, huh?
Tampering's fun when it works for you.
Yeah. I'm waiting for the announcement they had to give up a 4th or 5th round pick because of it.
I started today's show, Chris, asking John this question. I'm going to ask you the same question since you were there yesterday. What was your main takeaway from the Howie and Nikki show yesterday at the NovaCare complex?
And I was shocked at how normally it was a contrite. It was aptly so contrite because normally times we see them, it's like a light mood and everybody's talking and everything. This one, they were down to business.
No jokes, no giggling. Yeah, it was all business, Chris.
And I think this team needed it, and at least they somewhat laid out the plan of what they're planning to do. And I look at Nick now. I think Nick knows that this is the year. This is a make it break it year for him. And the fact that he kept saying he has to prove it to everybody to make sure he's proved it to Lori, he has to prove it to Howie and everybody else that he's the right guy to lead his team. There's almost no excuses now because you're probably going to get a different type of mind in the offensive side. We know Fangio's the defensive coordinator. It's all him now. They have to, at least in my opinion, at least get to the divisional round, probably conference championship, depending on the roster they bring back in order to come back for 2025. So it's all on him now, and he's got a big task to undertake. Most of his pieces are still there on offense, except for running back, I don't know who it is. And defensively, you got the defensive line. So yeah, it's all or nothing for Nick coming up this season.
I want you to put on your Jeffrey Lurie hat, Chris, or your Jeffrey Lurie hoodie. I can't give you the $5 billion.
Yeah. By the way, there's no way Jeff Lurie ever wears a hoodie. No.
I have never seen him.
Franklin can pull it off. Belichick can pull it off. Jeff Lurie, not going hoodie.
And the comfort of his many mansions, who knows what he wears around the house. But
the help sees him in the hoodie. He's embarrassed. No,
anyway,
he's not.
I'm sticking with the premise, the Jeffrey Lurie hoodie. So you put that on. Look, you and I know how many times Nick Sirianni has said over the years, this is my offense. This is my offense. It doesn't matter if Shane is running it or Brian Johnson is running it or Dom DeSandro or Chris Franklin or Jody McDonald. As long as I'm here, this is going to be my offense. That's a direct quote from Nick Sirianni. It is now no longer his offense. How is this going to work? How?
Look at Tomlin. Look at some of these other guys as well too. It's basically he's CEO now, and maybe
he was a CEO before. But the difference to me is he was a CEO with power. Now he's a CEO who's a figurehead.
Yeah, CEO with more input and fingerprints on that type of style thing. And now I think he's truly CEO. I think when you say he was a CEO, it's more like to me it just felt like he's CEO, but he's got a lot of say in what happens in that offense, how it's run, and the overall game plan. Now it's just basically it's like, okay, this is what we're doing. All right, cool. How's it going to affect game situation part? Okay, cool, and just going from there. And it's a big departure from that. And I'm looking at the way that I really want to know what type of offensive coordinator is going to give it, because there's going to be it feels like there's going to be temptation there, especially with his like him being from the offensive side of the ball. It's going, well, what if we do this, or what if we do this, or we need to do this because it's still a head coach. And I think that's a big thing. It's going to be a big thing is the relationship he has with whoever he brings in as the offensive coordinator. That's going to be the biggest thing. If they bring in like an older, gruff, I'm trying to think of a guy off the top of my head, like, okay, like older, like it wouldn't happen, but like Kavanaugh or something like that. But hey, like somebody like a rough guy that tries to run it, and maybe butt heads. If he's somebody like the Kingsbury, it's almost like you can't put his touch in there because air raid versus the East Coast style offense. So it's just weird.
Boy, man, I just look. To me, here's the tip. There's two CEO coaches in the championship games this weekend. John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell, CEO coaches. It can succeed. They're proving it, but they have power. To me, Nick Sirianni is now Jason Garrett at the end of his tenure in Dallas, where he's basically, and I think the best question was from our buddy Tim McManus, who basically went off Office Space on him and said, "What exactly do you do here?"
I was shocked. I was like,
And
well, then let me turn it into a question for both you guys. What do John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell do? If they're CEO coaches with power but don't really run the offense, don't really run the defense, what do they do that Nick Sirianni won't be able to do?
They run their teams with impunity. That they did what Nick Sirianni did this year. What Nick Sirianni did this year, he ran his team. He could do what he wants. Now, do you have to bloat major decisions? Yes, of course, to up the but he had the power to run his team. Now, and he said yesterday, Chris, the new offensive guy, he's running things. And we know Vic Fangio is going to run the defensive side of the ball. I kind of chuckled when he said to Tim's follow-up, what are you going to do? And he was like, a retired guy. And he said, well, maybe I'll sit in the defensive meeting. It's like, well, maybe I'll go to the Poconos. Maybe I'll go down to the lake today. Maybe I'll sit in the defensive meeting. It's Jason Garrett versus Dan Campbell and John Harbaugh. It's somebody, Jerry Jones, for those who forget, stripped Jason Garrett of play calling duties, and he had no autonomy over the defense, and he became the clapper, the guy who would clap on the sidelines. Is that where we are?
I don't think we're there yet. Now, if they start going there, because the reason I also look at like a guy like Tomlin, like the one thing I see with those three guys, the two guys in championship game and Tom as well too, they've been there for a lot longer time, and they've had success as well too. I don't think he's there yet because they know that he's doing that. Now, if they feel they lose the team, okay, cool. I think he gets it back quickly too if they win. If they go to the playoffs again and they do get that, and I think he's established. I think it's a lot of times just because he's a younger coach, he doesn't have the experience. I don't know necessarily that he's Jason Garrett-esque in that way, because I look at Jason Garrett, I just think like, what the hell was this going on? But yeah, like a lot of times they lost the team and then they didn't have the success too. So I don't think he's there just yet, but it's nearing that point. I still think he has a decent say within that team overall.
And here's where I guess I'm half in agreement with John on the two coaches, the CEO coaches that are still playing. When you listen to Dan Campbell speak, and if you talk to his players, I think they'd all say, yeah, we're going to run to a brick wall for Dan Campbell. Whatever coach asks for, we're going to do it. And the same thing for Harbaugh in Baltimore. I think they run. So a big part of Nick Sirianni's CEO head coaching job is going to be he's going to have the respect of the players, and the players ready to run through a brick wall for him. And they used that word culture again yesterday, umpteen times. My job is going to be to keep the culture. Do we have faith that Nick Sirianni can get that done? That the players are going to go, all right, well, this is the offensive coach, this is the defensive coach, but the head coach is still Nick Sirianni, and I got to go to work for Nick Sirianni. It can work. Will it work? Is Nick Sirianni in a position to do that with this group of players going into next season, Chris?
I feel like I'm his attorney. I feel like I'm defending him a lot more than I really should after coming off this season. But yes, I think it could. I really do still think it, because I look at what he's done. He's able to do from what he's shown. That one too. The thing that doesn't have me completely all in was that 1-6 kid, and knowing that you had to turn things around, and you had to do that, and it seemed like everybody just went through the phases of shell shock going through that whole entire end of the season and didn't see that. But I still look at the first two seasons. I see a guy who was able to motivate them, even though they had that easy schedule in that first year. They still were able to motivate them and get them to the playoffs. And I still look at the way his messaging through that Super Bowl year, and it still worked as well too. So I still think it's there. Maybe the time away does a good thing for them. That everybody's away now. Everybody reflecting on how the season went down, and when they come back for OTAs and training camp and everything, everybody's refocused, and it's like there's been time to let everything cool down. And I think that plays a role into it too. But I think overall, when you look at it, I think he can.
Boy, I don't know. From the standpoint of just the signals it sends, and I think it sends signals. And another difference, I should have brought this up. When we talk about Harbaugh and Campbell, because of the championship games, they decided that they wanted to be CEO coaches. They came in and said, this is how I'm going to run this particular team. They decided. Things weren't stripped from them. So other people around the league see things have been stripped from Nick Sirianni, whether it's coordinator candidates, whether it's people, whether it's players knowing he's coaching for his job, whether you want to call that hot seat, lame duck. If things start to go in a negative direction, that thing kind of snowballs. You see it all the time with coaches on hot seats. No concern over that aspect of it if you're got the Lurie hoodie on.
I can see now is Laurie in a hoodie now walking out in the first practice and that. But no, the one thing I am concerned about is especially the offensive coordinator part and the depth of the coaches they hire after that. Because if I'm a coordinator in that situation, I know it's not like I'm talking both sides of it out, but if I'm a coordinator in that situation, I'm looking at this like, okay, this could be one and done if everything goes south. Because if they do, then they're going to clean house again. And then the same token, I look at it, if you're a coordinator, you do really well and everything turns around, especially on the offensive side, you're probably getting a head coaching job somewhere else. So this is where I think the most important thing I think with all this whole situation is you have to get a coordinator that's willing to think that they can turn things around and be here for a couple of years and you get an offensive staff and like say like a quarterback's coach or whatever new title you want to add to that side of the ball to be ready to take the mantle in case that office coordinator gets a head coaching job. Because we saw what happened. I like Brian as a person, but we saw what happened with this team last year. So yeah, I think that might affect the offensive coordinator search very soon. I think
All
so.
right, let me ask you about the offensive coordinator. Somebody's going to get the job, and they both said this yesterday, and maybe this is a mistake on my part, but I kind of buy it. There were a bunch of things that were said yesterday that I'm sorry, I just wasn't buying, but I believe that when they said it with conviction. They're going to hire a person, not a scheme. That they're going to hire a guy that they think can do the job and bring new ideas to the table and mesh with. Sirianni kind of hammered that home yesterday. We'd be foolish not to keep certain things that we've done very well over the last 2 years. So the whole meshing to create this new hour offense, is it going to be more toward new ideas, different ways of doing things? Is it going to be closer to Sirianni-like, or will they stay the course and say, hey, it's the guy, it's not get away from what Sirianni did, stay as close to as what Sirianni did? Do you believe them when they say it's just going to be about hiring the new guy and their belief in what he brings to the table?
I think it's still more about the scheme part. I think it's be closer to. I think it's something more along the lines of what they've done well, and then they get somebody that can tweak it and add some things into there. Like
Frank Reich. You think there's any chance Frank Reich comes here?
I'm not saying zero. I'm not saying 0%. I don't think that's the right person to do it this year. And I like Frank Reich what he did beforehand. I just don't know, especially when you look at what happened in Carolina. Carolina was a dumpster fire with everything that happened down there and everything else. But I still think the fact that he gave up, Frank took over, play calling back and forth. I think that plays a role in that too. But I think you look at a young guy. I just think it's more a scheme because when all said and done, you still look at the numbers that offense put up. Even though they struggle, they still put up a lot of yards at times, except for those last games. But I don't know. I'm trying to think of a name that would fit in. Like to me, Kingsbury.
Yeah, I think he's a good bet. I think he's a good bet for what they need. I do.
I like what he does with the quarterbacks themselves, like the quarterbacks themselves. Like you look what he did in Kyler Murray and that. So I like the way that he simplifies the fact that he was a former quarterback again, and that helped tweak everything in that offense. I think it helped out a lot. So in that aspect, I like him. This offense with the air raid, I don't know that.
You don't need the mesh either, huh?
Yeah, I'm thinking more of the RPO part of it, but if you know when it comes to Jalen Hurts, Jared Johnson is a guy who was a former quarterback like Cliff, Houston guy. Was that interview about, because he's a very young coach, he's 35, he was assistant quarterback coach 2 years ago. This was the first year he even had a positional coach job. So I can't believe that's really about being the offensive coordinator, because they want a more veteran presence. They want a guy who's built offenses. Is this the guy they want to work with Jalen Hurts on a day-to-day basis? That kind of raised my antenna. And I don't know if they can get him because he's from Houston. And he's working with C.J. Stroud, by the way, which is pretty good. But is that their thought process when it comes to somebody like that?
I think you just try. It's one of those things where you just try to look at all the teams that are successful right now and bring them in, and you just use them as fact-finding missions along with trying to find your right guy too. Because I look at C.J. Stroud. I mean, I look for anybody from Monken's staff as well too to see what they're doing so well with what they did so well with Lamar Jackson. Get it on tape as much as you can, record it, get it on tape, see what those concepts that you have, and then see the guys themselves as you go along with it. I'd use the interviews more for that. I think that's a good way to use as well too. As for Johnson, I think it's one of those things where it's an interview to satisfy a rule, but it's also still one of those things where you can gain a lot of information. I like what he has done so far, and I like the way that he's incorporated and made Stroud comfortable in NFL and helped that transition from college. I don't know if they're going to hire him necessarily that way. I think they're going to go more on the veteran side as well too, as a teacher, especially if you're going to have somebody being the quote unquote running that offense for themselves. I think they're going to go some more veteran route. But he's a good name. Somebody I'd watch for the next couple of years. I'd probably say in like 4 or 5 years he's going to be a head coaching candidate. But
I'm trying to what I was saying is try to steal him away. Not that they would tamper, but try to steal him away from Houston to be the quarterback coach, to be the position coach, and work with Jalen Hurts. Not that they would do that.
Yeah, I think
that's one where I'm saying thank you. No, if I'm him, I can stay with Houston with C.J. Stroud, with a coach that overachieved in year one, or go to a team that's got a talented quarterback for sure, but you got a coach who's halfway out the door. Yeah, no, I'll stay right where I am. Thank you very much.
No, you bring up Yes,
people overstate. Nobody wants to come to Philadelphia. There's a whole bunch of people who want to come to Philadelphia. They'd be in a better position to come to Philadelphia. He just happens to be not one of them. He's in a pretty damn good spot where he is right now.
And not, for sure. And not that the Eagles would tamper, as I said.
Tampering.
All right, let's talk about tampering. Do you believe that Howie Roseman, prior to yesterday's media session, ran by Vic Fangio, since he knew he was going to be their coordinator, Nakobe Dean's going to be the savior at middle linebacker for the Eagles? Because the general manager went really deep on his defense of Nakobe Dean yesterday. We like the perception that we don't care about linebacker. Oh, we do, because we think Nakobe Dean's going to be great. Yeah, I thought Nakobe Dean was going to be great coming out of Alabama too. He's been here 2 years and hasn't flashed anything. You think they got the blessing from Vic Fangio to go over the top in the praise of Nakobe Dean?
The fact that they did Dean and Cunningham and they put it out that strong, I don't even see it as I don't even see it as like a smokescreen for something else. I think they're really going to run it back with those two. I really do. Because when you look at the free agent class for off the ball linebackers, it's really not that deep. And the best way, I think they bring those two back, Van Sumeren, and they draft a guy one of those second round picks. Probably not going to be in the first round, but I think you use one of those second round picks and draft a linebacker as well too. And then they're going to say this is our core, because it's as much as even when we say like, okay, he's on his linebackers, and we know they're not going to take one in the first round. And I mean, by linebackers, they're not going to do that, because of the positional value they put on the line and corners. I think they go corner first round, if anything. When I look at everything else, I just don't see them doing that. So there's a very good possibility that when they take the field week 1, if he's healthy and remains healthy, makes camp and everything, we're looking at Nakobe Dean, and they re-sign Zach Cunningham, and they go from there. And hopefully, hope the defensive line plays a lot better. I think they're banking a lot on Fangio fixing the defensive line and their usage in order to get things right and keep the linebackers clean. I think that's one of the biggest things they're banking on for Fangio to fix, besides his coverage.
Yeah, I mean, they have to obviously upgrade they have a lot of decisions to make in the back seven, from the aging Slay and Bradbury with contracts. They have to decide the linebacker. I think, look, I have no problem. I'm not giving up on Nakobe Dean as a player, But I'm also not putting all my eggs in that basket again.
Wasn't that the way it sounded, John, yesterday?
Yes.
We know what they did and we know what they said. Aren't they going down that road again?
Yeah.
I'm crossing my fingers because I kind of stuck my neck out in singing the guy's praises, but I'm being honest here too. He hadn't done diddly in 2 years.
I'm more concerned about the durability part of it. I think if he can stay healthy, he'll turn into a good player, but I can't count on the durability part of it. So I got to have a plan B, and the plan B can't be Ben Van Sumeren. I love the kid, but it's got to be something more tangible. And I think it will be. They'll probably draft a linebacker. It'll be in the middle rounds. They have to start hitting on these draft picks. Yeah, but you can't just say, okay, Nakobe Dean, we're going to count on you 110% because he's got foot issues. And guess what? He doesn't like cleats except one brand that's discontinued. I don't even understand that. He's 23 years old. Or however, I'm concerned about the durability aspect. But I think he's going to be a good player still. Remember Jordan Hicks got injured year after year after year. Good player when he played. And then he left Philadelphia and he was healthy for like 6 straight years.
The Philadelphia curse. I don't know what Ben does it with.
Philadelphia linebacker curse. Make sure you clarify it. It's the linebacker, not the Philadelphia curse, the Philadelphia linebacker curse.
Sometimes it's just the luck. It really is injury-wise. And, maybe gets healthy and maybe he starts playing and he turns into a player. But, man, you got to have a better plan B, Chris Franklin. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think, and that's why I really think. Yeah, for me, I just can't. I look at the way that the Ravens are playing. I look at the way the 49ers are playing. I can't wait till the middle of the round to get a linebacker. I know you can get value if you want to take 2 linebackers this draft just to see what you have.
Carpet bomb the position.
Yeah. I have but you have to use one of those one of those first picks in the 3 picks in the 53. You have to use them on a linebacker because there's been too long. It's been too long since they had developed their own linebacker that stayed around and been an impact. And this team is deep as you can't. This is the biggest thing. You have guys on the first unit, guys on the first level and third level. That middle of the field has to change because teams have been attacking it left and right. So I think it's about time they have to address it with a very high pick this year. You really need to.
All right, Chris Franklin. The last question I have for you is one that was asked of me the other night when I was on WIP. We've been beating up the Eagles pretty good here today. I want to end on an upbeat mode. Will Tanner McKee be the Eagles' second quarterback next year?
Yes.
I really got that question. I'm going, wait a minute.
Wow.
All this stuff is going down, and you need to know it's Tanner McKee. And the guy meant it. He would say, yeah, I really need to know. So it's an important question for Chris Franklin. Will they be bringing Mariota back or another veteran guy, or will Tanner McKee be good enough to be the Eagles' backup QB?
I think McKee becomes the number 2. I think they get a undrafted free agent or they take somebody in the 7th round, put that there, and then they move that. Because I think it's more about the roster management and the cap management in terms of that. Because I know you got Jalen Hurts' injury history, and there's still always a chance you're going to have somebody in there. But I think they really like this kid, and I think they really like the way that he puts the ball out and his accuracy and his quick decision making and getting the ball up. So I think he's really the number 2, and you use that money to try to shore up some other areas. I think he did.
Yeah, I think it depends where the Eagles think they are. If they think the championship window remains open, I think they'll go better. And if not, I think
they have to think that. Can't why the would you bring in Vic Fangio and pay him a big chunk of money? Maybe not $4.5 million, but I guarantee you he's going to be one of the highest.
Well, then you
then go, oh, we got to save some money on the back end. No, they got to be in it to win it next year.
Then their history is get a veteran backup to win a game or 2. Now, the only time they went away from it is Jalen Hurts, but Jalen was the 53rd pick in the draft. Tanner's, 6th round pick. That's a big difference.
And I don't know this guy's contract history. I don't know if he's still in the contract next year, if he signed a 1-year deal with the Commanders, but if Jacoby Brissett could take a deal that's very affordable, that's the guy.
Jacoby. Of course, Nick has no power, so it doesn't matter if Nick likes Jacoby.
Who's the new offensive coordinator? We got to wait for him to be named to answer that question. I just wanted your opinion, Chris Frank. We always want your opinion.
Yes.
That's why we have you on as often as we do. Read him at nj.com. Does an outstanding job covering the Birds for that outlet. And whenever he hops on with us. Thanks, Hoodie Man.
Thank you. I'm on to sleep. Sorry.
There we go.
I'll
Yeah.
see you later.
That's Steve
Very
Franklin News. Make sure you follow Chris on X, Twitter, whatever you call it.
So social media Chris. I like Hoodie Chris better. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. We're going to put a bow on the show.